Hello listeners and welcome to the show. This is Sam Abrika, the CEO of Nova Money, an AI financial planner designed to help you build financial freedom. Lucas Caneda is a trilingual professional rugby player, investor and businessman. When he's not in the field, he's looking for the next startup, real estate or juicy deal to invest in. Although being a great athlete and a great investor requires similar qualities, it's quite uncommon for a professional athlete to wear that many hats. And today, Lucas will tell us how he managed to do it. Hey Lucas, very happy to have you today in the Nova Money Mindset podcast.
Hey Sam, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
I have a burning question, Lucas. You're a rugbyman, professional, you're an investor, you're a businessman. Don't you have like some identity crisis? How do people introduce you during like parties?
Nobody knows. That's a good thing though, because I don't really like labels and I'm used to wearing many hats. And that's one of the things that keeps me going and keeps me excited. I don't really fit into a box, and that's actually a good thing, I believe, because we need to think outside of the box to create good things.
And it's a good thing. Unfortunately, it's not that common. People love to put labels, especially like if you're an athlete, if you're a rugbyman, if you're a football player. Yeah, you're a football player. Yeah, you're a rugbyman. You're just a strong guy who pushes things. And how do you deal with that?
Well, I do what I do, and I do it because I love it, because I'm passionate about what I do, both sides, so business and the sports. That's the important thing. As long as we do what we love, we do it with passion and with as much as we can, then that usually gets you where you need to be.
Got it. So how does Lucas identify himself? Like, who is Lucas today?
Well, I'm myself. I'm a professional rugby player. I'm a businessman. I'm one of the directors here at Unicorn. One of the directors at some of the companies that we've founded here. I'm also an investor. I'm also a husband and a dad. Many things. And I think each of us is different, and that's what's so interesting.
And do people take you seriously when you say that, yeah, I'm a rugbyman, I'm a businessman, I run an accelerator, I'm an investor, etc.?
Well, you usually do, yes, because if it's either for rugby or for business, it might be a bit more difficult. But what people tend to appreciate a lot is someone that's doing both things at the same time, because there's lots of values and synergies between business and sports, which you can leverage on both sides of the coin, and that brings you to a whole different level. And there's always a connection with someone from one side or one angle, and when you're able to really create that connection with someone, then everything comes easier.
The synergies between business and sport are not obvious, apart from doing marketing. Like we see like a very famous athlete, they would go on Instagram, they would go on ad TV if it was like 10 years ago. So how did you get started? Where did you start? Did you start by being a businessman and then playing rugby, or the other way around? And how do you like develop the synergies?
Well, it's hard to say. I think both things came at an early age. I started playing rugby when I was 5 or 6, and I played ever since. I was always interested in sports. I played different other things. So I played soccer. I did some martial arts. Always loved to tennis, to golf, but I mean, just a sportsman in general. But also since an early age, I always tried to learn how to invest. I always been asking lots of questions of how do we get this, how do you do that, and also try to build stuff myself in terms of creating a business. Ever since I was a kid, I remember trying to create a little shop when I was about, I don't know, 8 years old. My mom had a school at our house, and I used to sit outside when people came and sold stuff. I mean, just anything, right?
Like selling lemonade?
Yeah, just trying to make money. But that thing evolved a little bit. I remember a good story was when my grandfather gave me a good gift for one of my birthday presents. It was back in the day when the CDs were a boom. And instead of buying a pair of shoes with that money, I bought a CD recorder. And well, I started selling CDs to my friends and actually created a thing at my school. So ever since I was a kid, I had that mentality, entrepreneurship growing inside me. So I think both things came together. And when you talk about the values and the things that the connections between one and the other, I think they're pretty much the same, especially in the entrepreneur side, in the startup world. There's many difficulties, many obstacles that you need to overcome at both sports and business that are very similar. There's lots of efforts that need to be done to push the extra mile, to get to the finish line. When you're playing a competitive sport, you know that you need to train hard, you know that you need to recover, eat well, sacrifice, let's say, a couple things. So if you have an excellent party to go tonight, but tomorrow you've got a big game, I'm sorry to tell you, but you shouldn't be going to that party. You need to be resting. And that's something you need to be smart enough to prioritize. What is it that you really want to achieve? And that same thing happens in business. You need to be able to set your objectives. How are we getting there? And of course, there's always a side that you're letting go. So yeah, the connections are very, very big. And then when it comes to some of the values that you need to have in order to become a successful athlete or as a successful businessman, I think many of those are very similar. For instance, you need to be able to be resilient, because sometimes there's going to be problems, sometimes there's going to be fallbacks. You need to stand back up, keep going, keep putting hours of effort into it to get where you want to be. You need to have a very, I would say, rare mentality. So you need to have that winning mentality to get where you want to be. It's not just enough with wanting something. You need to actually need that something you want to achieve, to put yourself through the process. Because whoever thinks that having a business, a startup, or being an athlete is easy, he's wrong. There's lots of things to be done, and if you're not doing them yourself at the beginning, there's nobody else who's going to be doing it for you. So you need to accept that, accept the challenge, take the adventure, and just push it to the next level.
I can totally relate to that. When I was younger, I used to play a lot of sports, so I didn't come even close to your level. I was a terrible football player. But it really taught me about the team spirit and the importance of the mental. I think one of the sports where it's the most important, it's in tennis. In tennis, you lose the moment you believe you have lost. You can't go back in the match because, you know, it's long match. And it's very hard mentally when you're dominated to believe that, yeah, you can return the situation. And now I run a tech company, fintech startup. So I can see so much parallel. And starting a tech company, it's like starting a tennis match or a football match where after 5 minutes you're dominated 5-0.
But you need to keep going, right?
you need to keep going and you need to do the impossible.
Yep.
So all the odds are stacked against you. And you need someone to find a way with no resources, no money, very little time, high pressure, and trying to find a way like to keep your rent, stay alive, and develop your business, get your customers, do the product, the design, the sales, the marketing, the operations, all at once, and trying to sleep 8 hours per day, if you can.
8 hours might be a bit too much, I think. Unless you found...
A lot of founders don't sleep 8 hours.
No, not really. Unless you actually know the secret formula to make days longer, which in that case you need to share it with me, please. I don't think you're in any position to be sleeping 8 hours a day.
If I had it, I wouldn't share it with you.
True.
But it's so true what you say, and I can definitely see the parallel between your life as a professional rugby player and your life as an entrepreneur businessman. And it really reminds me of what Ben Horowitz said in his book, The Hard Things About Hard Things. The hardest thing as an entrepreneur is always the same, no matter what's your business. It's fighting your own psychology.
True.
Always.
That's true. I mean,
and
it's a fight against yourself, especially. But that's the same in sports.
Because the normality in this game is to lose. Like in football or rugby match, well, you can say if the expected gain is 0.5, you have half chance to win, half chance to lose. Like if you're statistically, if you just take like a dumb stats approach.
Yeah.
But in startups, it's not 50-50.
Oh, of course not. I mean, the risk, and that's something I always try to tell the entrepreneurs and the startuppers, that the risk is big, but you need to accept that risk, know that it exists, so that you can make it as low as possible. But if you think this is easy, or you think, oh no, I can't fail because I've got all covered, well, you're probably going to be screwed eventually, because you need to be able to identify the problems and find solutions beforehand, before they actually occur.
There's a joke in the entrepreneurial world. It's like there's a hidden god that whenever you make a business plan, he's going to turn the world like on purpose so that your plan will completely fail.
That's it. I mean, it happened so
many
times. I
think that summarizes pretty well.
Yep, pretty good.
The startup life.
But then again, if you know what you're facing, everything becomes easier. If you identify what is it that you're doing, and if you match some points that for us are very important. For instance, if you have a good proof of concept, if you have a couple clients that are actually testing your product or service, if you manage to convince at least a family member to invest in your business, those are the 3 key points that we at Unicorn, we ask at the beginning. Why? Because that gives us a much lower risk. That shows us that this is for real. It's not just an idea in your head that, oh, I have this brilliant idea that I'm going to put and to develop. Well, yeah, but show me first, what are you capable of? Because we're not going to do everything for you. We're going to help you out. We're going to push you through the nice route, the good ways, and help you develop and accelerate what you're doing. But you need to be able to do it yourself. And then one of the key questions that we ask ourselves is, what are we going to provide to the startup to get them an extra value, an added value, and how quick are we able to develop that ourselves? What this means, if you put it on the other way around, on the startup side, is that you need to find the right people to do the right things. It's not just how do I do this, it's who is going to be doing this for me that's going to be the most effective, cost and productive effective, and also who is going to be the one that's getting the most results for my objectives. Because at the end of the day, that's what we need.
Yeah, and in a way, it's very similar to rugby playing. Nobody is playing like all the roles on the field. You have teammates, and then you strategy allocate.
Indeed. And that brings me to one of the points that I love the most about rugby, is that anyone can play the game. There's no perfect physique to be playing the game. Anyone can manage. There's always a position, a role for each of us to be doing. Of course, you need to train, you need to take care, you need to get better at what you do. Everyone can find a spot in a rugby team.
What's your spot, by the way?
I play wing, so I'm one of the quick guys.
Okay, you're the sprinter.
Yeah, basically.
And can you tell us, when did you start investing? Was it before you even went to the professional league, or was it before? Did you do that in parallel?
Well, I think it was a bit before. I've always been interested in investments. I remember when I was a little kid, I don't know how did that happen, but in one point in time, interest rates whenever you had money in the bank were not that bad. And I was a little kid, and I was like, well...
In Argentina?
Yeah, back home. Yeah, I think it was 12 or 13. I was very young. And I don't know how I managed to understand that if you had money in the bank, at the end of the month, you had a bit more. So I told my mother, hey, take this money to the bank, put it in for me,
Amazing.
and get me some extra cash. Of course, at that point in time, I didn't understand. I was not aware of inflation and a lot of other things that made it. At the end of the day, I had less money than I should have. But again, it was just the
How
mindset.
old were you?
I think it was 12 or 13.
Okay, that's admirable. 12, 13 already thinking of money and the compounded effect of interest rate.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work because, of course, banks always pay you less than inflation, right? But it's just that mentality of getting to work.
That's how they make money.
Of course, I mean, with our investments, thank God. So, yeah, it began early. I do like real estate on investments, even though some people don't. I find it, what I tend to do, I try to leverage bank's money into buying real estate. It's not that easy, but especially here in Europe, with the interest rates today, which are very, very low, it's pretty productive. So that's been one of my interests in the last couple of years. I do like stocks. Don't really invest that much because I always find myself not knowing enough, even though I probably should. I do like a bit of crypto and startups, of course.
Very diversified portfolio.
Well, you know what they say about diversification, right? If you put all the eggs in one basket,
yeah,
it might be a bit more risky.
In the same basket.
Yeah. How about you?
So about me, I wish I learned about investing sooner. So when I grew up, I was completely broke as a student. And I didn't have like the money or the risk appetite to invest because, you know, when you have nothing, losing just 100 euros seems like the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's what I could save after 1 year. And I wish I started to invest when I started to work, and because it would have given me, I think, tremendous return. But I started to invest like after, let's say, 2-3 years experience, when I managed to settle in, repay most of the debt of my family, and be more comfortable with the amount of savings I have. I think that one of the requirements to invest is to feel confident in your financial situation. If you're worried about will you make it until the end of the month, do you have debt, do you need to pay the rent on time, etc., you're not in the right mindset to be thinking of investing and growing your money. You first need to stabilize your situation.
Yeah. That's actually the Maslow pyramid, right?
Yeah, exactly, Maslow pyramid. So I started to invest in the business of a friend. He had like some cash requirement because he had like a very cyclical business. So he needed money for just 6 months, and then he could pay me back, etc. But I think my biggest mistake was when I heard about Bitcoin. It was back in 2012.
Oh God.
I had a colleague of mine who told me, "Hey Sam, look, guess what's my latest investment?" I thought he would tell me, I don't know, like some stocks
Apple.
or binary options, something fancy. He told me, "Yeah, look, there's this thing called Bitcoin. I just bought 100 euros. He was German. And he told me, "Look, you should try it. Maybe, what's that?
Yeah.
Don't understand it. Never heard of it." And actually, I could have afforded at the time to just risk 100 euros. Like, definitely, like if I lost 100 euros in my life after working 3 years, I would have stayed the same person. But I didn't do it. And I think that was my biggest mistake and my biggest learning.
We kind of all did the same mistake when it comes to crypto, right? I think 99.9% of the people didn't take that shot. That's probably why only just a couple of them got very, very rich. But again, there's opportunities everywhere, and you don't need to. One of the things I don't really look for when I do investment is to get rich from one day to the other. I do think that investment takes time, and everyone has a different objective, and that's what you need to have in mind. A good thing that you said is that you need to be psychologically available to be in a good situation to invest, because most of the investments done by a rapid rush or just a hunch, are not the best ones usually. I mean, of course, it can turn well, but in terms of probability, at the end of the day, it's a lot harder. So whenever you've got your feelings mixed up with your investments, it becomes a bit more complicated. And again, if we're trying to get rich from one day to the other, the chances are that we just lose everything many, many times before we get anything. Some people are in for it. I don't see that as something wrong. It's just not my way of being. I'm a bit more cautious, I would say, when it comes to investment. I do like, I don't know, I would like to be in a position when I'm 50, so in like 20 years, I would like to be in a position where I could, if I wanted, decide not to work anymore because my investments would be providing for me and my family. So I don't need to become rich today, right? So I've got 20 years to develop that. It just takes time. I think compound interests are one of the most powerful thing ever, if played well.
Yeah.
For those who haven't heard of it, probably a good reason to go Google it.
So, there are three ways to get rich in this world. And the interesting part is, I think you're using the three of them. The first one is compounded profit interest rate. You learned that when you were 12. Money makes money, and the money makes more money.
More money.
The second is leverage. So invest more money than what you have. That's also what you did when you're leveraging the capital from banks to buy real estate. You just put like some initial deposit and you borrow the rest. And then the compounded profit do the rest for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the third way is scale. And that's what you're doing indirectly by investing in startups.
Agreed.
Because it's risky startups, but the one which succeed, they have like a scaling potential and factor that will just blow up.
That's the idea, Sam. Exactly. And also, again, if you diversify, your chances of hitting some of those are a lot better. And I also try to, I would say, diversify my portfolio in the sense of not having risky investments all over. That's why, for instance, real estate, I think it's one of the safest. If you can manage to keep them
depends
over
on the
time.
country, but I guess if you're in France, it's relatively safe.
Yeah, but same as stocks. I mean, if you check the markets, I think it's on the stock market, I think it's between 9 and 11 years. It's proven that if you keep any stock for that amount of time, over the past 100 years, there has never been a situation where you've end up losing money.
You never make a loss, yeah.
Yeah. So,
True.
I mean, in terms of risks, that's a risk I would take. You know what I mean? It's of course, you're always taking a risk, but that risk is being reduced by all that information, but all of that. And you need to you need to know how much time can you keep that money in that place. Because, for instance, for real estate, what I did is between 15 and 20 years. So I know that money is stuck in there for that amount of time. If I take it before that, I'll probably
what's
end up
interesting,
losing
Lucas?
some. Yeah, go ahead.
You're obviously a sophisticated investor, and you're doing actually the opposite of what most beginner investors think what investing is. And they would go all in on GME or Bitcoin or a binary option. And because they see that on Reddit and social media, that one guy did one super big bet and get rich, they believe that this is how you invest.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what they don't see is these are just the lucky winners. And out of the whole spectrum, if there's like, let's say 1 million people doing some crazy strategies, of course, at the end of the tail, there are going to be like a couple of winners who will win big. But it doesn't mean it's a smart thing to do with your money. You're just seeing like the top 0.01% who got lucky because they happened to invest in Ethereum and Bitcoin and GME just at the right timing. And what I teach now on my YouTube channel is how to think about investing. It's a long-term game, and if you look at all the sophisticated investors, they don't do like some risky bet all in, one-off on one asset. They actually diversify, and they, in that way, control the risk of their investments, such as you said, if you hold a stock for more than 10 years, historically, you almost never lost money. Most of the time, you actually win quite a decent chunk. You do that in real estate. You use compounded, you can use leverage, you invest in startups so that you get some scaling factor for like the tech companies. And when you build all of that, then in the long run, in 20 years, I think you have like a pretty decent future.
I agree. And one big difference is between investing and betting, I think. And the people that go into Reddit and, look up something and just, hey, put all my money, it's red or black, right? Go into the roulette. I think the 21's going to be today. Okay. If it doesn't happen, I lost. That's good for some people. Again, I'm not against anything, right? But you need to know, you need to...
It's like sports betting.
Yeah, same thing. You can have a bit of information, but there's always betting that happens. It's not investing. And for me, the key question is, what do you want to achieve? Because we are all different and we all look different things while investing. And maybe the guy that they've read about that won or earned, depending how you call it, X amount of money because they got lucky or because they knew what they were doing, let's say, they had different objectives. Maybe they had 1,000 packs and they wanted to become rich for the next day. So if you want that, of course, you need to assume risks
exactly.
that I'm not willing to. So we're all different, but as long as we know...
you don't have the same starting point.
Yeah. And also, we don't have the same end point, because I think that's the most important thing. Where do we want to get? As I told you, my objective is to, in 20 years, be in a different situation in terms of just, be able to provide... Yeah, do whatever I want, basically. Because I keep working, I keep doing stuff. I'm just too electric to stand still, right? So I'll keep doing things, but I'll do whatever I want. That's my objective. I hope I do it, of course. And we never know. Something might happen in the middle. But as long as we know what we want to achieve, it's a lot easier to invest with a better direction.
I totally agree that it's very important to have in mind and picture what's your end goal, what's your vision for your life, what do you want to do with your money. And actually, that's how we try to implement like the AI for that, for people to have financial objectives based on their goal. And what I realized along the journey is most people, they don't know what they should aim for. They don't know what's realistic and what kind of target they should set for themselves. There's no financial education.
Oh, financial education, it's a huge problem everywhere. One of the books I've really enjoyed about that is Robert Kiyosaki's one, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you haven't read it, you've probably heard of
classic.
It. Yeah, it's just...
I have it in my bookshelf.
Yeah, 101, right? Basic, simple, and just straight to the point. This is what you don't know. And this is one of the most, the biggest problem out there for financial education is that you don't get it. We do so many things at school that are mandatory and nobody ever teaches or has a class of financial education. And I think we would all be in a better position if we started having at least 1 hour a week at school of financial education. Why not? I don't see why not.
Absolutely. I think it's a very politically... topic.
Yeah.
People don't want to talk about it. All our politicians, they prefer to be blind and ignore the problem as if it doesn't exist, as there is no debt, there is no equality, nobody's doing any stupid shit with their money. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think some people might be afraid of people becoming, I don't even want to say rich, but financially independent in some way or another. You don't need
financially
to be rich.
Free, so that they use their money for what they want in life.
Exactly. But that should be something that because we all want that in one point in time, even if we don't like to accept it, because some people are afraid of saying that money is important or whatnot. Of course, there's things, like they always say, things that money can't buy, but it certainly helps.
I think it is important, and the difference I've seen between those who have a goal and those who don't is people who have a goal are driven and they're motivated, and then they can adapt their behavior so that their action align with what they say they want to do. For example, if you say like you want to buy a new car, you want to buy a house, then you're not going to spend all your income on drinking beers and Starbucks coffee, because you know that you want to have your house for the next 2 years for your family or your new fancy car. Whereas when people don't have any goals, they don't know what to do with their money. Like they earn their income. The problem is almost never the income, except for people who are on very low income. Okay, there are lots of them. But most people who are in debt and in trouble, they actually earn average or even higher than average salary.
Yep.
And the problem isn't the income. The problem is the behaviors.
Yeah.
How to align their actions, how to get what they say they want. They say, oh yeah, I want to have this holiday in this house, and all the money goes to Amazon.
Well, that again, I think it's part of the financial education that we are all missing, because you need to be coherent with your lifestyle. If you're earning this much, but you're spending this much, I mean, there's certainly a problem in some point in time. That happens a lot with American football players. I think that they are probably one of the sports that they are paid the most. And I think the statistics show that 80% go bankrupt in the next 5 years after they quit playing, after the end of their career.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And you know what? Because they keep spending.
That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, they keep, maybe they get 30 million a year in revenue. They've got those kind of contracts, right?
Which is a fortune for 99.999% of the population.
Exactly. But if you are spending that much and you're not investing and you're just spending, writing checks, and when you don't have that income anymore, you keep spending that much, eventually it runs out.
I heard for the first time of these statistics, I think 2 years ago, and I couldn't believe it.
It's nuts.
I thought it was like some fake news on social media. You know, they want to promote some clickbait title, like 80% of American football players are broke. Come on, that.
Yeah. It
You have
seems
to be kidding me.
impossible. Yeah. How can you spend that much?
Yeah.
Well, they do.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree.
In my entire lifetime, I wouldn't make like 1% of what they have made. And I checked, I investigated, I looked at the data. It's real.
It's true. Amazing, but true.
Yeah, I don't know how come, how most people can like understand that. Maybe you can give us your perspective. We had on this show a professional football player, and he also got bankrupt because he tried to keep his lifestyle and spending like his friends, etc., until like he just couldn't continue, and then he had to go back to zero from scratch and pay off his debt and start to have like a healthy lifestyle. Did that happen to any of your friends or teammates? Have you seen that in the rugby community?
Well, the rugby community is a lot different in terms of the amount of money that we're earning. It's nothing compared to American football, so it's not the same. But yes, of course, many people spend too much and spend more than what they make. And it's the same as a business. If a business is not selling as much as they are spending, eventually they go bankrupt. The same happens to a person. It's the same thing to have in mind. You need to be coherent about what you're doing. And one of the things I do believe that many athletes are missing is this concept of being able to, after your career, keep doing something. So let's say that an average time for a career end, it's 35 years old. If you've done nothing in terms of what you want to do after you being an athlete for the past 15 years, it's very hard to start something up when you're done. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing both things at the same time. And that's why what I wanted to do, and that's what we are building here internally too. So we've got the control of the team. We took the local team, the local rugby team in here in Unicorn. So we manage the club. And we have around 20 players that do both things at the same time. because we believe in the opportunity and the benefits of doing part each and involving people onto both sides of the story, right? People that are on the pitch creating and making this adventure and this challenge together, and also off the pitch at our offices, working for the club. That gives us a cohesion between each other and for the team that's just on top of the rest.
I guess you guys athletes, you have a problem that we don't. Your retirement age is very early.
Yeah, especially when you haven't done anything for what comes next.
Yeah, if you're not forward thinking. What's the daily life of a professional rugby player? Do you train like every day all the time? Do you have time to develop like other skills? How do you do that, and how like other rugby players manage their time?
You certainly have time, that's for sure. When you're just playing professionally, I would say around 15, 20 hours a week.
That's it?
Roughly speaking, yeah. Maybe more 20 than 15. But yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, you usually train 2 full days, recover a whole day afterwards, train half a day for twice, then you have the game. So you do have time. And there's always something that you could do. It just depends on how much do you want that to happen.
Yeah, how driven you are.
Yeah. It all comes back to that.
What do most players do in all their free time? Do they just party and drive a Ferrari?
No, not a Ferrari in rugby, because salaries are nothing like
Porsche.
Not really. But
Mercedes?
I don't know. Some people just, they like to sit down, watch a movie and do nothing. Some others keep studying, keep trying to have a side hustle. But I would say it's not the majority. Most people just focus on rugby, which is nothing wrong. I've done it, for instance, for the first year I was a professional. I've done that, for instance, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to leave that and to experience that for once at least. And I focused only on rugby during the whole year. But then after that, I said to myself that was not enough. So during my free time, I was studying a management career, an online management career, which I'd done in 2 or 3 years. Then after that, again, the question was, this is not enough, let's do something else. So I decided to look for this opportunity to play rugby and also to work, doing both things at the same time.
I guess in rugby, in a way, you're not as fortunate as football players. You don't make like tons of millions every year. But on the other hand, this is what also is incentivizing you to develop your skills and to take more control over your future and your reconversion.
Oh, certainly, because I would say almost all of the rugby players need to do something after rugby. The salaries are not that big. Only, 10 players in the world a year, they might get good money, but the rest, it's just a regular salary. So it's good while you do it, it's great. But then in one point in time, it won't be enough. And then what do you do?
Yeah. Is it a source of anxiety? Do people think about it, or do they just ignore the problem until retirement?
I think that's the main issue. Most of them just don't see it as a problem till it happens. And one of the things that you never control in a professional career is when that end is coming. You can have a very serious injury that takes you off. You can have, I would say, have lots of competition and then don't find a spot. You don't know what or when that's going to be happening. So you need to prepare. You need to be ready. And you need to always have a plan B.
And how most rugby players reconvert once they retire?
I don't really know exactly the statistics for that. There is a big quantity that keep close to rugby. So coaches, video analysts are working for the club. There are pretty much many of those. And then probably some people turn into relationships because you've been developing that side pretty much. a couple of entrepreneurs always. But yeah, pretty much
Hey,
variety.
that's good. So I guess financial planning is something very important for any professional athlete.
Of course, I mean, we've discussed already the statistics about American football.
Yeah.
If they had at least a little bit of financial planning, they'll be in a whole different level. Imagine just investing 10% of what you get every year during your career in anything. Well, you're saved for life, you, your family, and whoever you want.
We should be very easy when you get 30 million to just invest 10% and live with
It should be
27.
very easy.
If you can even manage to spend 27 million a year.
But let's say you do. Let's imagine yourself, you actually spend 27 million a year.
They're double athletes.
And then
champions in spending and in sports.
you give 3 million to whoever you decide. I mean, you just put it on any ETF. Something easy. You don't...
Yeah. S&P 500 and don't think about it.
Yeah. And you just keep it and you just reinvest. Do it every year for your whole career. I bet you won't ever need money again. Of course, if you manage to put yourself in a situation where you can stop spending 27 million a year. Because if you keep doing that, eventually it's never going to be enough.
But I think the benefit here is doubled. So the most obvious one is your investing money is going to grow, especially if you can afford to invest like 3 million a year because you're like a football player. But the second benefit, the one that we don't talk often about it disciplines yourself.
Yep.
It tells you that, hey, you can't be spending everything just because it's in the bank.
True.
Like you have options to do with your money, and spending everything is not the smartest of them.
No, definitely not.
And I think if they just had this mindset of, I'm going to invest 10% because I can easily afford it. I'm not going to spend everything. I'm going to control my income, my cash flows, what's coming in, what's coming out. I think there would be no problem of professional players being bankrupt.
Or at least a lot less. I think there was one case, I can't remember who, but I read it a couple of years ago. There was one agent, I think it was a soccer agent, but I can't remember, that at the end of the career of his player, he was in a bad situation financially, and then he came to him and said, I've got one bad news, one good news. So I'll start by the bad news is for the past 15 years, I've been your agent and I've been stealing money from you. The guy was, what the fuck? I mean, are you crazy? How could you have stolen money from me for the past 15 years? Say, wait, let me tell you the good news. The good news is that money that I stole from you, I invested it for you. So for the 15 years, his agent has been covering for him, and now he had that portfolio done, and he was in a whole different situation.
I wish I had such great news.
Yeah.
Hey, 15 years of millions invested.
Of course. Well, we can still do it.
Lucas, why do you think that financial planning is not something more common amongst the professional players?
I think it happens a lot with financial education, and also you usually tend to get to money easily and quick, which is, I would say, pretty rare. So the majority of people just start to get a little bit more money every time and then eventually have more money. But a professional athlete, they might have done a great season, then next season sign for a big check. And that usually, we come back to that mentality, that personality that psychologically can put you in a very difficult situation. And also I think in some atmospheres, in some environments, people are just accustomed to spend too much because of that financial education that they are missing.
You know what's surprising to me? A lot of the world's best players actually come from poor background. They remember that when they grew up, money was very tight and the value of $1 like it sticks in your mind
Yeah.
when you have like a tough upbringing. And what's striking to me is one day they become like very good, they become like the world top best players in their field and money comes through them. But it seems like they kind of forget where they come from.
I don't think they forget where they come from, actually, but imagine from that poor background, what financial education would you have? Probably none.
Usually none.
Yeah. So I think the biggest problem comes from that. I mean, we all did it at least once, right? When you had your first salary or your first income, you went out and you spent it. I think we all did. When you were young, you were just...
I remember my first paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, you spend it all probably, and you spend more than what you had. I mean, I think we pretty much all did that. And the problem is, if you do that every single month, there's never something left. And I think...
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I think that nowadays the biggest inequalities is not that much if people are born like in, this old concept of social class, upper class, middle class, etc. I think what is defining nowadays the inequalities are the financial education, the intellectual curiosity, and the differences between people who are going to learn what are the right habits and implement what's good for them, and those who don't and are going to just be passive in society. And if you're passive in society, what most people end up is just being consumers who are going to work their entire life and end up with nothing, because the whole consumerism machine is designed for companies to make money out of the consumers who just like spend and spend without thinking, because they don't project themselves in life and what they want to achieve.
Well, I think there's 2 points to that. One is, if that's what you want, that's perfectly fine with me. I have nothing against people that's what they want for life. Again, is that planning.
I don't think that's what people want.
Some of them.
I don't think so. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, but some of them like what they are doing and they just enjoy it that way, and that's who they are. And I think that's part of it, and I totally accept that. But the other thing is one word that you said there that I think is the most important thing is curiosity. So nowadays, everyone has a cell phone, right? I have mine right here. So you have a cell phone, you probably have internet access, you can get whatever you need. It's not like before. If you want financial education, if you have that curiosity and you want to learn more, it's up to you. There's hundreds and thousands of things to learn. If you're just driven and want to learn more and want what to do, it's just up to you to start looking up, start reading. There's tons of things that we can do.
Yes, there's a fundamental shift that the internet has brought. Nowadays, the information is accessible for everyone, and most of it is for free.
Yeah.
So it completely negates all the inequalities that we used to have before between those who were born in wealthy family and could access higher education and those who didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why now the inequalities are those who have the intellectual curiosity to learn and then to take control of their life, and those who don't.
That's exactly
because the information is there if you really want it.
Yeah.
Like we run this show, it's for free, guys.
Exactly.
You can all learn about financial education. I run my YouTube channel. If you need help with the execution on how to set goals, there's the Nova Money app. You can get so much stuff for free, but you need to want to take control of your life.
Yeah, of course.
Lucas, I have a last question.
Shoot.
A lot of people, they don't like the labels that the society is giving to them. They feel like they're pigeonholed. What would you like to tell to people who feel like they deserve more than what society tells them that what they are?
Well, I'd say I don't give a shit about what they say, but that's probably not politically correct. No,
that's fine. We're not politically correct in this show.
True. So now I would say it's not what people think about yourself, it's what you and your friends, your family, that's what matters. And as long as you are confident in what you're doing and you are happy with who you have become, that's what you need to keep in mind. It's not what society thinks, it's what you and the people that you love think about you. And as long as you treat people with respect and you do things with passion, I don't see a problem into that.
Awesome. So focus on what you are, what you want to be, build your own self-confidence.
Yeah, and always with respect. I mean, one of the best things about business, that it's not what happens in sport, is that there's no winners, I would say. We can all succeed in the business world. We don't need to be stepping over each other or trying to beat someone to be successful. Being successful, in my opinion, is just achieving whatever we want to achieve. And we can all do it at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your journey so far in life.
Thank you, Sam. It was a great show. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All the best.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. I hope you found this episode enjoyable, inspiring, and educational. In this era of instant gratification, it is more important than ever to train our delayed gratification muscle. So keep learning, keep improving by 1% every day. You may not see the result right now, but this is a secret of all the successful people I've met. Please help me spread financial education by sharing this podcast with your friends and community. I would love it if you could also leave us a review. It really helps the show. Now, I would like you to forget about all the advertising that is being pushed to us on a daily basis and think about your personal financial goals. What do you really want to achieve with your money? If you have financial objectives, then check out the Nova Money app. Nova is an AI that will show you how to set financial goals and how to achieve them. A plan is only useful if you can follow it. That's why Nova will send you daily motivational messages to give you the strength to ignore the daily temptations of spending money and stay focused on your goals. Like other budgeting apps, Nova connects all your bank accounts in one place to give you the full picture. The difference is that the Nova AI will do all the budgeting and tracking for you. The second difference is that unlike many free personal finance apps, we don't sell users' data. All your data is encrypted and will remain completely private. Make sure that you're investing in your financial education. Make sure that you're building your financial freedom. And I'll speak to you in the next episode.